Committee will come to order. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. In 2014, former Secretary of Defense Robert Gates famously said that then Vice President Biden, he's been wrong on nearly every major foreign policy and national security issue over the past 4 decades. Then 10 years later, in 2024, Secretary Gates lamented how the deterrent power of the United States has declined in the last several years and concluded, no one seems to be afraid of us. It doesn't take a rocket science to figure out that President Biden is the common denominator in this shocking turn of events. Indeed, his failed leadership has destabilized our geopolitical order and threatened our national security. From appeasing adversaries to opening the border, this president has eroded years of hard work in the name of a rather muddled worldview. House Republicans remain committed to shielding Americans from the worst consequences of this administration's warped priorities. This is why we are here today. The Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security, State and Foreign Operations, all of those appropriations bills will recenter our priorities and improve our global and domestic postures and right-size the spending. I'd like to commend the Appropriations Committee for crafting legislation that responds to this administration's reckless approach while honoring the duty to the taxpayer. For decades, we all grew up on this. Peace through strength. It served our country well. President Biden has abandoned that wisdom, and the state of the world today reflects the failure of that foreign policy. Everywhere you turn, our adversaries take advantage of the president's willingness to appease them. In 2021, the president removed the Houthis from the list of foreign terrorist organizations, only to watch them storm the United States Embassy. 9 months later, today they're harassing international shipping lanes and launching rockets at our troops and our allied partners in the region. And they're not the only adversaries he's appeased. In November of 2023, the Biden administration reissued sanctions waiver that gave Iran access to more than $10 billion. And then 5 months later, Tehran launched the largest combined military and drone assault ever against the country of Israel. The administration has emboldened bad actors. The world and our national security has suffered because of us. So H.R. 8774 reacts to the crisis we find ourselves in. It provides a total discretionary allocation of nearly $834 billion, funding critical programs from hypersonic research to shipbuilding. Whether it is countering active threats or deterring the machinations of China and Russia, this measure makes up much-needed headway. Additionally, the bill refocuses the Department of Defense on its core mission by defunding the Green New Deal budget and defunding DEI distractions. Our military should be laser-focused on prevailing in any conflict. They don't need Washington to force them to make these woke decisions along the way. Since President Biden entered office, he took over 60 executive actions that eroded border security. Time and time again, Republicans sounded the alarm on how destabilizing and dangerous these actions were for America's national security. For years, we weren't only ignored, we were derided for daring to question the wisdom of our border czar, the wisdom of dissolving our nation's borders. Predictably, admitting scores of illegal immigrants from across the globe has not made this country safer. You know, it's interesting to me that when someone presents themselves at the border, if they say, I've got a credible fear in my home country, then the asylum laws allow them into this country. When do American citizens get to say, I've got a credible fear of all these people you're letting in unvetted, that they may make my life more dangerous? In fact, as ICE and the FBI have discovered, they've allowed at least 8 individuals with ties to ISIS to infiltrate major American cities. We're on a knife's edge for the sake of a president's radical ideology. Beyond the serious threat of terrorism, American lives have been cut short by criminal illegal immigrants on this administration's watch. Jocelyn Dungary, Rachel Morin, Laken Riley, Alex Wise Jr., Elizabeth Medina, Melissa Powell, Riordan Powell, and Travis Wolfe are just a few of the individuals whose lives were stolen by this crisis. Travis was just 12 years old when he was killed. No matter what other members may say, President Biden's open border policies certainly aren't making migrant crime less common. The Appropriations Committee crafted H.R. 8752 with this terrifying situation at the forefront of their minds. It makes a much-needed down payment to secure our southern border by providing $600 million for the construction of the southern border wall and prohibits the dismantling or removal of existing border barriers. The bill also ensures the removal of dangerous criminals from our nation by providing $4 billion for custody operations more than ever previously appropriated. There's also $822 million to fund transportation and removal operations for removable aliens. The president's open borders agenda must be contained before it is literally too late. And finally, the Rules Committee will consider the FY25 State and Foreign Operations and Related Programs Appropriations Act. This provides funding for operations, programs, and activities that support our national security and our interests while reducing overall spending. Our allies, as well as our adversaries, are much aware of the president's missteps. Within the bill, Israel receives $3.3 billion in foreign military financing to defend itself as it faces multiple threats to its continued existence. Additionally, countering the People's Republic of China, the Influence of PRC Fund is funded at $400 million, ensuring that strategic deterrence with China. I expect my friends and the ranking member will find that issues with these underlying measures, that's their prerogative. Indeed, it would be unusual for the ranking member to applaud the efforts of the majority in advancing their agenda to the floor. But I would like to offer two observations that I think most Americans are keenly aware of. First, the world has become much more dangerous than it was nearly 4 years ago. And two, President Biden has been at the helm the entire time. House Republicans are doing our utmost to reverse the reckless impulses that have put us on this path and will keep Americans safe. The Appropriations Committee has done their work by providing the funding. I cannot find fault with that. I only look forward to the enlightening testimony from the committee, the Appropriations Committee, and the opportunity to advance this critical legislation that bolsters national security at this pivotal moment. So I would now like to yield to our ranking member, Mr. McGovern, for any remarks he